Admiral Torvik Veshin of the galactic hegemony sneered as the holographic display showed the primitive human vessels. The council chamber buzzed with amused whispers and derisive chuckles. Humans, the newest and most peculiar species to achieve faster-than-light travel, had petitioned for membership in the hegemony, presenting their technology as worthy of consideration. These contraptions, Veshin gestured dismissively at the human ships, utilize nuclear fission and primitive ion drives. They've barely mastered gravitational manipulation. More laughter rippled through the chamber as the assembled representatives of 16 advanced civilizations shared in the mockery. Counselor Drelna Ifri, the silver-skinned diplomat from Altiris, leaned forward. Perhaps we should not be so quick to judge. Humans have achieved interstellar travel in merely 2 centuries since their industrial revolution. That pace is unprecedented. Unprecedented crudeness, snorted High Commander Brozik of the Moldovan Empire. Their ships would crumble under our standard weapon yields. Look at those hull materials, metal alloys, and carbon composites. Ambassador Mackenzie Reed of Earth sat silently, her weathered face revealing nothing as the alien dignitaries dissected human technological capabilities. At 63, she was a veteran of both Earth's unification wars and first contact protocols. She had anticipated this reception. The human delegation may speak, announced Grand Arbiter Felion, the ancient, tentacled moderator of the council. Reed stood, her posture military straight despite her age. Distinguished representatives of the hegemony, I thank you for your thorough analysis of our technological status. Her voice carried no hint of the humiliation that would have crippled a less disciplined diplomat. We acknowledge that human technology appears simplistic by your standards. Our ships lack the crystalline hulls of the Zeralian fleet or the plasma web defenses of Moldovan destroyers. Our weapons don't harness dark energy like Alteron cannons. She paused, surveying the room. However, humanity has always excelled at one particular discipline: adaptation through adversity. A quaint sentiment, interrupted Veshin. But the hegemony doesn't admit members based on spirit or potential. Your species is centuries behind minimum technological requirements. Reed nodded. We understand. That's why Earth is not formally requesting membership today. We merely wish to establish diplomatic recognition and limited trading rights. The council deliberated briefly before Felion announced their decision. Humans would be granted observer status only, with restricted access to hegemony space and no protection under galactic law. As Reed departed, Commander Brozik approached her. Your species should count itself fortunate. The last primitives who ventured into deep space encountered the Vrax Dominion. They don't bother with diplomacy, they simply take what they want. The Vrax? Reed inquired. Expansionist warriors from the Cygnus Arm, Brozik explained with malicious pleasure. They've conquered 6 systems in the past decade. Thankfully, they're occupied subjugating the Tornali cluster, for now. Back on her ship, Reed transmitted an encrypted message to Earth. Contingency Osiris confirmed. Hegemony dismissive as expected. Threat assessment validated. Proceed with Phase 2. In the darkness of Earth's Jupiter shipyards, enormous vessels took shape, outwardly resembling the crude designs the hegemony had mocked, but harboring technological innovations no alien eye had witnessed. General Katerina Volkov watched the construction through the observation deck. They laughed at us, asked Fleet Commander Takahiro, beside her. Exactly as predicted, replied Volkov. Operation Trojan Shield is proceeding on schedule. The hegemony sees exactly what we want them to see. Across the solar system, humanity prepared in silence. They weren't building a fleet to impress the hegemony. They were building it to survive what was coming. The Vrax Dominion struck with devastating precision. Their obsidian warships emerged from hyperspace at the edges of 3 human colony systems simultaneously. Millions of colonists on Proxima Centauri B, Tau Ceti E, and Trappist 1D watched in terror as the alien armada descended upon their worlds. On Earth, the Emergency Defense Council convened within minutes of the first attack. Tactical displays showed overwhelming Vrax numbers. Each of their dreadnoughts dwarfed humanity's largest vessels threefold. Civilian evacuation protocols are underway, reported Defense Director Orion Lovu, his normally steady voice tense. But Proxima will fall before we can extract even half the population. President Kamisi turned to Admiral Volkov. It's time to deploy the Phantom Fleet. Volkov nodded grimly. The first squadron is already moving to intercept at Proxima. Elements of the Jupiter and Saturn defense groups are mobilizing for Tau Ceti and Trappist. Across the table, Dr. Lysandra Everett, architect of Project Lazarus, spoke quietly. The Vracs have no idea what they're walking into. Our intelligence suggests they expect minimal resistance. At Proxima Centauri, Fleet Commander Takahiro transmitted a seemingly desperate plea to the approaching Vracs armada. This is humanity's Outer Defense Command. We request terms of surrender to spare civilian lives. Supreme Warlord Greg Thursday of the Vracs personally responded, his reptilian features filling communication screens across the human fleet. Surrender is acceptable. Your technology will be assimilated. Your people will serve. Resistance means extinction. Takahiro exchanged glances with his bridge crew. Understood, Warlord. Our vessels will power down weapons as your fleet approaches. We request mercy for our colonies. Greg Thursday's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among the Vracs. Mercy is inefficient. Your colonies will be repurposed for Vracs expansion. As the transmission ended, Takahiro gave the real order. Activate Lazarus Protocol. All ships execute Operation Hydra. The seemingly primitive human vessels underwent startling transformations. Hull panels reconfigured, revealing hidden weapon arrays. Propulsion systems previously disguised as inefficient ion drives engaged their true nature. Quantum displacement drives developed in secret. On the Vracs command ship, an officer reported with confusion, Warlord, the human vessels are changing. Greg Thursday moved to the observation deck. Elaborate. Their energy signatures have increased tenfold. Their configuration is, the officer never finished his analysis, as the first volley from the human fleet struck. What the hegemony, and by extension, the Vracs intelligence had failed to grasp was humanity's greatest strength, their military history. For thousands of years, humans had practiced deception in warfare. The apparently crude technology they had presented to the galaxy was an elaborate ruse, a modern Trojan horse. The first wave of nanokinetic torpedoes bypassed Vracs' shields entirely. Designed to shift partially out of phase with normal matter, they rematerialized inside the hulls of 4 Vracs destroyers, detonating with catastrophic results. Impossible, roared Greg Thursday as the ships disintegrated. Their technology was assessed as primitive. The second wave of attacks came from weapons the Vracs had never encountered, quantum entanglement disruptors that targeted the very atomic bonds of their hull materials. In the Tau Ceti system, a similar scenario unfolded. Captain Abra Okafor commanded Earth's seemingly outmatched defense fleet with quiet confidence. Deploy phase-shifted drones. Target their command vessels first. Thousands of microscopic drones, invisible to Vrac sensors, swarmed their ships, penetrating shields and hull materials to attack critical systems from within. As battles raged across 3 star systems, the Hegemony Council received urgent transmissions from their observation posts. Admiral Vashin stared in disbelief at the footage. "It appears," said Counselor Ifri with careful neutrality, "that we may have underestimated human ingenuity. The human forces were not merely defending, they were methodically dismantling the supposedly superior Vracs fleets with technologies no one in the galaxy had seen before. And this was only the beginning. 3 days into what historians would later call the Proxima Offensive, the full extent of humanity's technological deception began to dawn on the galactic community. Emergency sessions of the Hegemony Council broadcast urgent inquiries to Earth, where President Kamisi finally revealed a partial truth. For centuries, our species survived through innovation born of conflict, she explained to the assembled alien dignitaries. When we realized how the hegemony might perceive us, we made a strategic decision to reveal only our civilian-grade technology. Admiral Vashin's holographic projection sputtered with indignation. This deliberate misrepresentation violates. Violates what? Interrupted Ambassador Reed. The hegemony explicitly denied us membership and protection. We owed you no transparency about our defensive capabilities. Meanwhile, at the front lines, the Vrax Dominion gathered reinforcements. Supreme Warlord Greg Thursday had not survived the initial battles, his flagship atomized by weapons that defied Vrax understanding. His successor, Warlord Drazkor, assembled the largest battle group in Vrax history. 17 dreadnoughts and over 200 support vessels converged on the TRAPPIST system. The humans possess unexpected technologies, Drazkor addressed his commanders, but they lack our numbers and experience. Their 3 colony systems are isolated from each other. We will concentrate our forces and crush them sequentially. What Drazkor didn't realize was that humanity had anticipated this exact strategy. As the massive Vrax armada approached TRAPPIST, one day they encountered an unexpected phenomenon. 6 miniature artificial wormholes blossomed in space around them. Through these dimensional apertures poured human vessels, not just from the nearest colonies, but from Earth itself. The technology to create stable, navigable wormholes had been humanity's most closely guarded secret, developed decades before first contact with the hegemony. Admiral Volkov herself commanded this operation from the U.S. Thermopylae. All battle groups execute containment pattern Omega. Dimensional anchors at maximum power. The artificial wormholes, initially used for the human fleet's entry, now served a secondary purpose. Their gravitational fields prevented the Vrax from entering hyperspace. The trap was complete. "We are surrounded," reported the Vrax tactical officer, a note of fear creeping into his usually emotionless voice. Drazkor observed the human deployment with growing dread. These were not the actions of a species fighting for survival. These were the calculated maneuvers of an experienced predator. "Warlord," his communications officer interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission from the human flagship." Admiral Volkov's image appeared before the Vrax command staff. "Attention Vrax forces. Your fleet is surrounded and cut off from retreat. Your attacks on peaceful human colonies constitute an act of war against Earth and her territories. You have one opportunity to surrender." Drazkor hissed in defiance. "The Dominion does not surrender. We have conquered dozens of species. Humans will be no different." "Very well," Volkov replied calmly. "Then witness what happens to those who threaten humanity." The battle that followed would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries. The human fleet employed technologies that seemed to violate known physics. Their smaller vessels executed maneuvers at accelerations that would have liquefied organic pilots, revealing another secret: advanced biomechanical interfaces that allowed human consciousness to control ships directly, without the limitations of physical bodies. Quantum phase torpedoes bypassed Vrax shields entirely. Gravity lance weapons collapsed the structural integrity fields of 3 dreadnoughts simultaneously. Swarms of nanite disruptors infiltrated Vrax command systems, turning their own weapons against them. Back on Earth, Dr. Lysandra Everett monitored the effectiveness of each weapon system from the Strategic Command Center. "The gravity lances are exceeding expectations," she noted to President Kamisi. "Shield penetration at 98% efficiency." "And casualties?" asked Kamisi. "We're capturing escape pods where possible," replied Defense Director Ndlovu. "Admiral Volkov is adhering to the Humanitarian Combat Directive." Despite humanity's overwhelming technological advantage, they demonstrated restraint, targeting weapons, engines, and command systems while endeavoring to minimize Vrax casualties when possible. This mercy confused the Vrax more than the advanced weapons. In their millennia of conquest, they had never encountered a technologically superior species that hesitated to eradicate their enemies completely. By the battle's end, 14 Vrax dreadnoughts had been neutralized, with the remaining 3 surrendering, an unprecedented event in Vrax history. Throughout hegemony space, the news spread rapidly. The supposedly primitive humans had not just repelled the feared Vrax Dominion, They had decisively defeated them using technologies no other species possessed. The question on every alien diplomat's mind: what else were the humans hiding? The Galactic Hegemony Council chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from all 16 member civilizations attended in person rather than via hologram, an indication of the gravity of the situation. The agenda contained a single item: reassessment of humanity's status in galactic affairs. Ambassador Reed entered the chamber, flanked by Admiral Volkov and Dr. Everett. Their presence, military and scientific leadership, rather than just diplomatic staff, sent a clear message. Grand Arbiter Felion opened the proceedings. In light of recent events, the Council has convened to reconsider Earth's petition for membership. The ancient being's tendrils undulated with agitation. However, before we proceed, this body demands explanation for humanity's deliberate technological deception. Reed stepped forward. With respect, Arbiter, no deception occurred. Earth presented aspects of our civilian technology. We were not asked to detail our military capabilities, nor would any sovereign species volunteer such information to potential adversaries. Adversaries? Hissed Admiral Vashin. The hegemony offered you observer status. Observer status, countered Volkov, speaking for the first time, which explicitly excluded protection under galactic law. Our intelligence services identified 13 separate instances in the past century where observer species were attacked by hostiles like the Vrax, while the hegemony stood idle. Dr. Everett activated a holographic display showing the progression of Vrax conquests over the past 50 years, a steady expansion that the hegemony had monitored but never checked. Your inaction made your position clear, Reed continued. Humanity would be on its own. So we prepared accordingly. High Commander Brozik of the Moldovians leaned forward. These technologies, wormhole generation, quantum phasing, gravity manipulation at this scale, our scientists declared them theoretically impossible. Dr. Everett smiled thinly. A limitation of perspective, Commander. Human scientific development followed different paths than yours. While the hegemony focused on crystalline computing and plasma technologies, we explored quantum mechanics, dimensional physics, and consciousness technology interfaces. The real question, interjected Counselor Ifri, is why reveal these capabilities now? The Vrax threat could have been reported to the hegemony. Admiral Volkov's laugh held no humor. Your record shows 17 formal complaints about Vrax aggression filed by frontier worlds in the past decade alone. The hegemony's response was always the same: insufficient evidence to warrant intervention. The chamber fell silent as the implications settled. Humanity had not just defended itself. It had done what the hegemony would not: confronted an expansionist power that threatened galactic stability. There is another matter of importance, Reed announced. During the conflict, we captured intact Vrax data cores. They contain evidence that elements within the hegemony have been secretly trading advanced weapons to the Vrax in exchange for resources from conquered worlds. The accusation caused immediate uproar. Several counselors shouted denials, while others demanded to see the evidence. Before Reed could respond, emergency alerts sounded throughout the chamber. A hegemony security officer rushed to Felion's side, whispering urgently. The Arbiter's color drained to pale blue. We have confirmed reports that a Vrax battle group has just attacked the Zeralian homeworld. Stunned silence followed. The Zeralians were founding members of the hegemony, believed to be under its fullest protection. How many ships? Demanded Brozik. 27 dreadnoughts and supporting vessels, replied Felion. Our nearest defense fleet is 3 days away at maximum speed. All eyes turned to the humans. Admiral Volkov consulted her neural interface briefly. Earth has a rapid response fleet positioned near the Cygnus transit point. We can be there in approximately 14 hours. You've maintained a military presence inside hegemony space. Vashin sputtered. We've maintained the capacity to protect innocent lives, Volkov corrected, which is more than can be said for the hegemony's defense arrangements. President Kamisi's hologram materialized beside the Earth delegation. The hegemony faces a choice. Accept Earth's assistance to save the Zoralian homeworld, or adhere to protocols while millions die waiting for your response fleet. The Council took less than 5 minutes to decide. As the Earth delegation departed to coordinate the defense of Zoralia, Reed paused at the chamber door. When this crisis is resolved, humanity will present new terms for our relationship with the hegemony. I suggest you consider them carefully. Across the galaxy, human vessels that had been hiding in plain sight, disguised as trading ships, research stations, and even derelict hulks, received their activation codes. Operation Vigilant Shield had begun. The hegemony was about to discover that humanity's displayed power against the Vracs had been just the beginning. The liberation of Zoralia unfolded with precision that left even veteran hegemony strategists in awe. Human wormhole technology deposited their battle fleet directly above the Vracs' occupation forces. Before the invaders could establish planetary defense systems, Admiral Volkov's vessels had established air superiority. Most shocking to hegemony observers was the deployment of Earth's ground forces. Soldiers in powered exoskeletons dropped from orbit in individual reentry capsules, bypassing Vracs' perimeter defenses. Unlike the bulky battle droids favored by hegemony species, these human warriors combined AI-assisted combat systems with the adaptability of organic decision-making. Commander Nyota Imara led the ground assault, her battalion of orbital drop tactical specialists infiltrating the Vracs' command center within hours. Combat footage transmitted to the Hegemony Council showed humans moving with enhanced speed and strength, their armor deflecting Vracs' energy weapons, while their neural interfaces provided real-time battlefield awareness no alien combatant could match. "Impossible," murmured High Commander Brozik as he watched a human soldier survive a direct hit from a Vracs' plasma cannon, a weapon that could vaporize Moldovan battle tanks. Their armor technology surpasses our theoretical models. Counselor Ifri studied the footage more carefully. It's not just their technology. Look at their tactics. Each unit operates independently, yet in perfect coordination with others. The humans fight as though each soldier can see through the eyes of all others simultaneously. Her observation was correct. Project Hive Mind, the neural battlefield network connecting human forces, represented another technology Earth had kept hidden. It preserved individual initiative while providing collective awareness, creating a fighting force that could adapt to changing conditions faster than any hierarchical command structure. Within 26 hours, the Vracs' occupation of Zoralia had been crushed. The surviving invaders retreated to their remaining ships, only to find their hyperspace capabilities neutralized by human interdiction fields. Admiral Volkov offered terms of surrender. When refused, she demonstrated yet another weapon the galaxy had never witnessed: the dimensional anchor. The massive device, deployed from her flagship, created a localized distortion in space-time that prevented the Vracs' vessels from moving in any direction. Trapped, without the ability to flee or fight effectively, the remaining Vracs' forces finally surrendered. The rescued Zoralians welcomed their human saviors with ceremonies typically reserved for their most revered ancestors. Footage of grateful Zoralian civilians embracing human soldiers broadcast across hegemony channels created a diplomatic earthquake. Species that had viewed humanity with dismissive condescension now faced uncomfortable questions about their own protection under hegemony defense treaties. President Kamisi addressed an emergency session of the Hegemony Council 3 days later. Unlike previous appearances where human representatives stood deferentially before the council, Kamisi's hologram stood at equal height with the Grand Arbiter's dais, a subtle but unmistakable rejection of the previous power dynamic. The attack on Zoralia confirms our intelligence about Vracs' expansion plans, she began without preamble. Earth's analysis indicates they will strike at least 3 more hegemony worlds within the month. Their recent aggression suggests internal political pressures driving military adventurism, a pattern human historians recognize all too well from our own past. Admiral Vashin bristled. The hegemony's defensive fleets are outdated, poorly positioned, and insufficient in number, interrupted Fleet Admiral Volkov. who had joined the transmission. Our analysis of their capabilities, which we've shared with your military command, confirms they cannot effectively counter the Vrak's threat without assistance. Grand Arbiter Felian's tendrils coiled in distress. What does Earth propose? A mutual defense alliance, replied Kamisi. Not Earth joining the hegemony as a junior partner, but a true alliance between equals. We will share certain defensive technologies, not all, but enough to significantly enhance hegemony security. In exchange, we require full diplomatic recognition, unrestricted trade access, and seats on all hegemony governance councils. The silence that followed was profound. For thousands of years, the hegemony had incorporated new species as subordinates, never equals. Earth's proposal upended the entire political structure of galactic civilization. And if we decline, asked Counselor Ifri, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. President Kamisi's expression remained neutral. Then Earth will defend its colonies and interests independently. We will continue to render humanitarian aid when possible, as we did at Zeralia. But we will not commit our full resources to defending a political entity that refuses to recognize our sovereignty. The implications hung in the air. Without saying it directly, Kamisi had made clear that Earth possessed military capabilities that could defend multiple fronts simultaneously against the Vraks or any other threat. As the Council deliberated, a final piece of humanity's strategic revelation unfolded. Dr. Everett activated a galactic map showing previously undisclosed human outposts, research stations, monitoring posts, and defense platforms distributed throughout and beyond hegemony space. We've been exploring the galaxy for longer than you realized, she explained quietly. These facilities were established using stealth technology that evaded your sensor networks. The message was clear. Humanity wasn't just technologically advanced. It was already an established galactic power operating beyond the hegemony's awareness or control. The Council had no choice but to negotiate. 6 months after the Battle of Zeralia, representatives from 23 spacefaring civilizations gathered on Earth, an unprecedented event in galactic politics. For the first time in recorded history, the full Galactic Hegemony Council convened outside their traditional chambers, symbolically acknowledging the shift in interstellar power dynamics. The location chosen for this historic summit was equally symbolic. The ancient city of Athens, birthplace of democracy on humanity's homeworld. The Parthenon, restored to its original glory through molecular reconstruction techniques, hosted alien dignitaries beneath its marble columns, a bridge between Earth's ancient past and its ascendant future. President Kamisi opened the proceedings with characteristic directness. Distinguished representatives, we gather today to formalize a new framework for galactic cooperation. The Treaty of Athens will transform the existing hegemony structure into a true galactic confederation, where all member species hold equal status under interstellar law. The negotiations that followed were complex, occasionally contentious, but remarkably productive. Humanity's demonstrated technological prowess provided leverage, but it was their diplomatic approach that surprised many observers. Rather than exploiting their military advantage to dominate proceedings, the human delegation focused on creating sustainable security arrangements that benefited all participants. Admiral Veshin, once humanity's most vocal critic, found himself reluctantly impressed by their restraint. During a private conversation with Ambassador Reed, he finally asked the question that had haunted hegemony leadership for months. You could have demanded much more. Your technology gives you significant advantages. Why seek partnership rather than dominance? Reed studied the Altarian admiral thoughtfully before responding. Because we've read our own history, Admiral. Empires built on military supremacy alone inevitably collapse. Lasting civilizations require mutual benefit and respect. While diplomats formalized new governance structures, a joint military operation was taking shape. The combined fleets of Earth and the former hegemony powers prepared for a decisive campaign against the remaining Vrak strongholds. Intelligence gathered from captured data cores had revealed the location of their homeworld, a secret the Dominion had guarded for centuries. Aboard the UES Thermopylae, Admiral Volkov briefed commanders from 16 species, former adversaries, now serving as allies. The operational plan incorporated technologies and tactics from multiple military traditions: Zeralian stealth systems, Moldovan shield configurations, and Earth's wormhole deployment strategy. This mission represents more than military necessity, Volkov told the assembled officers. It demonstrates what we can achieve through collaboration rather than competition. The assault on the Vrak's homeworld would become the textbook example of multi-species military cooperation. Precisely coordinated attacks neutralized orbital defenses with minimal civilian casualties. Ground forces secured strategic objectives, while evacuation corridors allowed non-combatants to reach safety. When Warlord Supreme Krostal, ruler of the entire Vrak's dominion, was finally cornered in his underground fortress, he found himself facing Commander Nyota Imara and a mixed unit of human, Zeralian, and Moldovan special forces. How, demanded the warlord as surrender terms were presented. How did a species we had never heard of a year ago bring down an empire that has stood for millennia? Imara removed her combat helmet, meeting the warlord's compound eyes directly. Because you made the mistake all conquerors eventually make. You assumed technological advancement meant the same thing to every species. While you built better weapons, we built better systems for communication, for cooperation, for leveraging collective intelligence. She gestured to her diverse squad. And most importantly, we recognize that true strength comes from unity, not dominance. As the Vrak's leadership signed formal surrender documents, a new era of galactic politics began. The Treaty of Athens established the Galactic Confederation, a governing body where technological contribution and diplomatic participation held equal weight to military capability. Earth, once dismissed as a primitive newcomer, now stood as a cornerstone of this new arrangement. Human innovations in dimensional physics, quantum engineering, and neural interface technology spread throughout Confederation space, while Earth scientists eagerly studied alien advances in crystalline computing, bioengineering, and stellar manipulation. 1 year after the conflict's end, the Confederation Council convened in its new headquarters, a massive station at the galactic core accessible to all member worlds through a network of stabilized wormholes designed by Dr. Everett's research team. President Kamisi, elected as the Confederation's first coordinating director, addressed the inaugural session. The conflict that brought us together has ended, but our shared journey has just begun. Throughout human history, our greatest advances came not during periods of comfortable supremacy, but through facing and overcoming existential challenges. Grand Arbiter Filion, now serving as Cultural Affairs Director, added his perspective. For thousands of years, the hegemony believed technological progress followed a single, predictable path. Humanity showed us that innovation thrives on diversity of approach. What one civilization deems impossible, another achieves through different methods. As the ceremony concluded, Ambassador Reed found herself beside Admiral Vashin at the observation deck, watching ships from dozens of worlds navigate the bustling traffic patterns around the station. "Do you remember when you first saw our primitive vessels at the Hegemony Council?" she asked him with the hint of a smile. Vashin's silver skin flushed slightly darker. "A humbling memory. I've served in the Altarian fleet for 2 centuries, yet failed to recognize the most important lesson of warfare. Never underestimate an adversary about whom you know little." Perhaps the greater lesson, Reed suggested, is that we need not be adversaries at all. Below them, a Vrak's diplomatic shuttle, the first such vessel ever commissioned in their civilization's history, docked alongside ships from former enemy worlds. Former warriors now served as cultural liaisons, technological collaborators, and trade representatives. The galaxy had learned what humanity had discovered through its own bloody history, that the greatest strength comes not from technological superiority alone, but from the ability to transform former enemies into allies. The weapons that had obliterated armies had opened the path to peace, a peace built not on dominance, but on respect born of demonstrated capability. And throughout the vast reaches of unexplored space, other civilizations took notice. The species that had once been dismissed as primitive newcomers had rewritten the rules of galactic politics in less than a standard year. They would not make the mistake of laughing at humanity's technology again.